All right, well, good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're excited to have you here for our second workshop for the Beall Student Design and Butterworth Product Development Competitions. For those of you who don't know, my name is David Ochi, and I'm helping you guys get through this competition and help you win. We've got a wonderful speaker that we're going to be talking with tonight, and I'm excited to bring him on. But before we do, I want to walk through a couple of logistics with you so that you have an idea as to what we're up to and how it's going to work. In case you've been off dealing with finals and spring break and all that, we want to make sure you're not too far off base here. So first of course, welcome. The Butterworth competition, as you know, is focused around software. The Beall competition is focused around hardware. It does not matter which one you compete in. The prizes are the same. However, you do get to choose between the two. In order to compete, you do have to have one student from ICS in order to be in Butterworth, or if to compete in Beall, you need an engineering student. You do not have to have both. If you do have both, you get to choose which one you want, right? The goal, though, is for you to be a student team working on a cool concept, trying to get something off the ground. Many of you are in capstone courses and things like that, so your teams are almost automatically put together. Of course, what many of you are here for is you want money to head to Las Vegas when we're allowed to go to Las Vegas and do anything worth going to Las Vegas for. But of course, we hope you use the money for something more productive, or at least for your concept more productive. Prototyping, taking the time to work on it over the summer, getting it into a customer's hands, as we'll talk about. But there is a first, second, and third in each competition. So there's a total of $40,000 in cash awards. I cannot make it official yet, but that number, not in the same format, but that number is going to go up. And especially if you're involved in big data and maybe even something to do with biotech, you may have the eligibility to get a bonus prize on top of that from a cool corporate sponsor that we're this close to getting. So now that I've jinxed it, we probably won't. So never mind, forget it. It's toast. I just jinxed it. Thanks a lot, Jeff.
I was just going along with you. So yeah.
So it's all good, but there will be a chance for some additional money is what it looks like. Some quick competition due dates for you. Many of you have done this, but if you have not, I highly encourage you to head over and do the intent to compete. It is not binding in any way. You know, nobody's going to say, you said you were going to compete, or you put in a teammate that's no longer there. It's just so we can know that you're interested, make sure we're keeping you abreast of what's going on. So I put the link for that into the chat window. So if you have not done that, do that but before we even have Jeff come up. There is a product specification due very soon. You'll notice that date's coming up. Here's the good news. It's not graded in the sense that if you do well or don't, you win or don't win the competition. It's a comments only kind of evaluation where the judges go through, evaluate it, give you some feedback so that you can do better at the final presentations and the demos. So it's really designed to be a midpoint or a stopping point for you to get the chance to talk with some judges. That review will take place on the 23rd. As soon as we receive your papers, we will schedule the times with you. If we run into scheduling conflicts, which are inevitable, we'll try to work them out, but you'll get the chance to speak with some judges either way. That's the goal. And then, of course, in about a month, you'll have the actual final product and business case due. And again, the template's up on the website. There's a possibility we're going to do a slight revision. So don't jump quite to that yet, but we're going to do a slight revision on that, but to include the video demo and that sort of thing. And of course, we're going to do a cool demo day on May 21st, where the judges will get to talk with you about your demo and what you've created, and really get an understanding beyond just the video, where we'll get as much as Zoom will allow us to get face-to-face interactions on it. And then, of course, a handful of you will be extremely ecstatic to be a part of the awards night, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Just to give you ideas where we're at, there's a bunch of workshops that we still have in front of us. Some of them are new venture competition related, as you can see. Others are going through our design workshop series. So you can see there's a handful of them. We're here in spring week 2. And you've got the product spec due, and there's a slew of them. If you have not registered for workshop 3, that is coming up on the 12th of April. That's in a week. I'll put the link into the chat window again for you so that you have that. That'll get you some direction. Of course, all of this is available up on the website. So if you have any questions about where to go for that, you should be able to find it there. And again, that link as well is posted. So we're not going to go through these schedules because you have them. The last thing I want to do before we bring Jeff up is we're going to be guinea pigs, if you will, for a cool new platform. I have to tip my hat to Kevin, because Kevin, who's on the call here, was kicking and screaming, saying, hey, how are we going to meet some people? We need to work together. We need to find ways to do this. And so we've got a cool tool that we're going to try after Jeff's presentation. Unfortunately, it doesn't work within Zoom. So don't go there now and leave the Zoom and, it turns off your camera and your audio and everything. It'll steal all that. But basically, it's a place to go mingle. And I actually piloted it with an accelerator last week, and I think it might work. And you'll see basically there is a hardware and a software space. You can ignore that if you want. But basically, we all get these cool little circle avatars, and you just drag yourself around and go chat to somebody. If you want to chat with them privately, you can send them a private message. If you want to just drag yourselves over to another circle, you can do that. You can go join a circle. It's just like you're networking, and you just walk around and try stuff. Hopefully you'll stick around after Jeff's done with his presentation. I think that would be a great area where you can basically have like little mini breakout rooms in Zoom through this platform, and move around and change breakout rooms basically all you want, right? So it's kind of a fun little tool. So we'll give that a shot afterwards. Again, I'll put the link in for you when we're done. With that, we have got Jeff, who is going to be an amazing speaker for you. Without going into his whole bio that's listed here and was on the, and this is a partial bio is for sure. Jeff has done this, I guess is the way I'll simply put it. He's been down the path of having to take something from an idea and design it into reality, and all the bumps and bruises and pains and things that come with that. So I'm going to leave that as I'm amazed that Jeff has any hair left after all the work that he's done with the development of products and services for companies. So that is not meant as a, oh, you have a lot more hair than I thought, Jeff. How does that sound? How's that for 2 jabs in a row? Jeff's never coming back. I'm toast. No, we're very thankful to have Jeff here. I think you're going to have a delightful time working with him. So Jeff, I'm going to stop my share and the floor is yours. Thank you again for all your work. And let's all give Jeff a big virtual round of applause, even if you just undo your camera mutes for just a
That's it. The clap. Who did the clap emoji? Nice move. There you go. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right.
It is all Jeff. Thank you much.
All right. Thanks. Okay. Presumably this actually worked. Yes. Are we good? Can you guys all see my beginning of my presentation? All right. So, so the objective here is around putting the end user in the driver's seat. And really what that is human-centered design. So if you guys want to learn everything in the world about human-centered design, I encourage you to go to IDEO and their IDEOU and look at some of the materials there. What I'm going to try to do is give you guys an incredibly focused crash course in how to leverage the design thinking to help you sort out the things that you're trying to build. So who am I? Jeff Kunzelman. I've done lots of stuff over my lifetime. I was actually at UCI, where I was in EE. So I almost have a degree in physics and EE and math, but instead I graduated in computer science because it was the fastest way out. By the way, the UCs have a max limit of credits you can get before they try to kick you out. I didn't know that until they tried to kick me out. So really it was all about learning and growing, exploring and building stuff. I've always been somebody who wants to build things, build cool stuff. Yeah. So I thought I'd start here and talk to you a little bit about some of the key takeaways from startups. And I've learned a lot at startups, but these are the ones that I think kind of will resonate with you all who are sort of in this space trying to solve problems. So most of the startups, I've actually been part of startups and I've talked to startups, and almost always the startups have a ton of great ideas for products. They fail not because of lack of ideas. They fail because they cannot narrow their focus and deliver a single good experience. What they'll often bring to the table is 5 mediocre experiences, and it affects everything that they do. The ones that have a consulting background, a lot of startups start from people who are consultants and they've got this great idea and they know better and they've solved this problem 100 times. And so again, it's interesting insight, but it might actually not be a path to a legitimate product, right? So you have to go from great ideas to a legit product. The theme here is need, find, and narrow. It is a distraction, I've determined, to be able to build products quickly. So if you have a killer engineering team in a startup, it almost works against you because it lets you build instead of prototype, discover, explore. And so one of the key things here is, and engineers love to build, is think more about the need finding, front load need finding, front load prototyping, front load exploration. Don't go straight to building. Lastly, 100% of the time, you love what you build. And this is a trap. You have to park your ego and park your mental model and let the idea go, step back, and really solve the actual end user need. All right. So everything I talked about, strategies to go after this problem space, is all called design thinking. And it really is this intersection of what does somebody need? Is there a business that's viable there that you can use? And can we build something to solve the problem? Now, I put technology on there because that's what we're all about. It doesn't have to be technology, right? It can be a strategy. It could be a book. But the bottom line is the intersection of all three of these things is what actually creates a real viable, sustainable product. So the key here is it's always human-centered, always talk to people, always understand try to understand a solution, identify a solution that will connect with their needs. This is not what they want. It's not what they say they want. It's actually that underlying need that you need to get to. It's really critical. And I'll hit on this a little bit later. You want to develop empathy with your users, not just sit and talk to them. Yes, no, yes, no. This is not a survey exercise when you're doing need finding, which is the beginning of this process, the research part. You really want to develop empathy. You need to feel their pain, understand where they're coming from, and it will that will help you generate a lot of ideas. And then the last thing is this entire process is all about empathizing, listening, learning, iterating, and sharing. So nothing works in a vacuum. All right, so a lot of people take the approach you see right here, which is solution first. I have this idea. I think this is what they need. You build it, right? You have the idea, you make a series of choices based on what you know, you build it, and you throw it out there and nobody cares. This happens over and over and over and over again. What you want to do is need first. Listen to what the user needs, create choices from all of those things that you've learned, narrow it down to certain key values, and then do that cycle again, and do that cycle again, and do that cycle again. So if you ever hear people say, how might I, that's code word for product design thinkers. How might I get on the roof easier? How might I build a ladder that does so-and-so easier? How might I? So that's the strategy. You'll hear that, like I said, keywords for product design thinkers. They're going into a mode when they say that to, what might I do here to solve this problem? All right, so seriously, you guys are all already working on some kind of product, and this is you. Like, it's your precious. This is what you see. It's your baby. It's like, it's awesome. This is what everybody else sees. Guaranteed 100% of the time, they're like, that is really just a steaming pile. So what do you need to do? You need to go from what you see. You need to get them to see what you see. But the only way you can do that is by delivering something they value, not what you value. So park your ego, listen and respect opinions. Don't try to convince people. You'll find yourself in this all the time. Look at my cool thing. Go check it out. And they're like, yeah, I really don't think that. But no, but like if you used it this way, it would be awesome. No, don't convince. Lose the preciousness to your product. It's going to hurt. You're going to hate it. You're going to want to cry. You're going to want to yell at people. I've been there. But every time you do this process, you'll get better and better at listening, and you will learn. All right. First part of this process, first part of this exercise, first thing that you should do is research. It is really all about customer interviews. You need to stay curious. You need to not assume. And most importantly, don't form echo chambers. So that means Don't always find people that agree with you. Find the people that don't agree with you, that your product and service, good and service, whatever you're doing might not work on, and try to understand why. And I'll tell you why that's important later. So empathize, always empathize with the people you're designing for. Understand how it affects their lives. This is something that should be meaningful to them. So how does it affect their lives? Even the smallest things affect people's lives. A Kleenex might affect somebody's lives because their nose gets sore. If you put aloe vera gel in it, maybe it doesn't. So everything can be slightly life altering to people. Talk to the people, not at the people when you're doing interviews. Find people that are not like you. This is really, really important. You need to find the extremes, the people who hate your idea and the people who love your idea. It's like the 1-star and 5-star reviews on Amazon. What do you look at when you go to Amazon? You don't look at the 3-star reviews. Who cares? You want to look at why do they hate it and why do they love it? And from those sharp edges, you'll be able to tease out all sorts of interesting things. How can I get somebody who generally thinks it's a good idea to become a raving fan? What is it that makes them love it? How do I get those people that are mediocre about it not drop into the hater zone? What is it that the haters hate so much about it? So that's the key there. Listen, okay? Listen to what they're saying, read between the lines, it's tougher with Zoom, not being in person. Read between the lines, and when they're uncomfortable, see if there are other questions or other ideas that you can use to talk to the folks. Be honest. This is all about honest. Tell them why you're doing what you're doing. Why am I doing an interview to get this information? What am I thinking of building? Take great notes. And one of the big things here is don't interpret. You're best off with 2 people when you're doing customer interviews, if you can. Somebody who's just taking notes and somebody that's engaged in the conversation. Come in with a set of ideas, of questions that you want to get answered. It should be short. And go after that. But if you're forced to taking notes, or if somebody's taking notes, don't interpret the results. Just take notes. Even better if you can record it. And this is all so you can get outside of your perspective and get into somebody else's head. Really critical. Okay, so once we've done our first set of interviews, customer interviews, again, what are we doing? Putting the user in the driver's seat. We've now talked to them. Take all that information, try to theme the ideas. You're going to find recurring themes typically in multiple interviews. Condense if you can. I'm not going to go into personas, but you can look for personas or market segments here when you're doing this. Identify opportunities. This is the key thing you're trying to do. And then think about everything that you've just learned and what you were trying to accomplish. And is there a single value you're trying to bring to the end users? Great example of this is when you hear people say, what's your elevator pitch? If you can say it in a sentence, you've got it. So really try to get to that elevator pitch mode. I have a friend who is just launched a new app. It's called Quiver, and he's a biking fanatic. And I said, oh, so tell me all about your app. Like, what are you trying to do here? And he's like, check engine light for bicycles. I'm like, cool. That's really cool. Okay, I get it. Now, who's your target audience? And then the conversation went for a long time. But anyway, elevator pitch. Think about that. Go with your gut, look at what feels exciting, what's lighting up the users that you're interviewing, and why. Again, stay really open-minded here. You might go in thinking you're solving one problem, and after 5 or 6 interviews, you recognize that's not the problem you should be solving. Maybe it's adjacent or completely different. You don't need hundreds of interviews. You need 5 to 15 quality interviews. So if you're getting good recurring signal on your interviews, you can probably move on to a different persona or segment to try to get different information. You don't need hundreds. You don't need 30. All right. So everybody kind of get the whole research part before I move on? I'm going fast. All right. And we'll have time to talk at the end. Next part is ideation. So this is traditionally that brainstorming piece. You have to do it with people. You can't do it by yourself. You can kind of brainstorm yourself. Mind mapping tools are pretty handy for this. But the key is get friends and roommates and co-conspirators, competitors in the competition. It doesn't matter who. Even better if you can have the conversation over, again, used to do this at Starbucks over coffee, buy people coffee and just talk to them and kind of get some ideas going sometimes. But anyway, riff off of each other's ideas, encourage crazy, focus on keeping it on one conversation at a time, and always withhold judgment here. You don't want to go and put people down when you're brainstorming. Whiteboards are great here. Post-it notes are great here. Be visual and visceral. And kind of on that note of encourage the crazy, there's this anecdotal story that I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, that there were these guys redesigning razors, and they were talking about razors, and they were in brainstorming, and somebody was like, oh yeah, why don't we just make microbes that go on the razor blade and it'll just eat your hair off your face. And everybody's like, ha 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 ha. And then, but somebody actually took that concept and went off and productized a strategy that reduces hair growth on the face by thinking, yeah, maybe it could be done with some sort of chemical. It doesn't have to be a blade. So how might we? Next is rapid prototyping. So the objective here is to build prototypes to test your value, your ideas, without spending a bunch of time and money. And time and money is really critical here. The faster you can iterate your early ideas to try to find fit with the end users, the better quality of an end result you're going to have, and the more time you'll have to actually build a good version of whatever that is. So stop coding, stop building. Like seriously, you guys are already coding. I know somebody's doing it. If you haven't actually talked to your end users and you've identified their need really crisply, stop. Do it on paper. Do it with cardboard. Do it with foam core. Do it with PowerPoint presentation. Try to get the simplest fidelity, the lowest fidelity you can get by with, to focus on the idea that you're trying to convey. It's not about being perfect. It's about getting answers to some of your questions, validating the designs that you have. So again, paper prototypes, wireframe designs. At the end, I have some stuff that talks about wireframe designing. Foam core and cardboard are great for the physical product designer building stuff. You guys that have 3D printers or access to 3D printers, that's a high fidelity prototype. So stay away from those unless it's really needed for what you're trying to accomplish, because it takes time. And not just the print time, but the design time. Lastly, storyboards. If you have a long, complex sort of journey you want to talk about, storyboards are awesome. This is why they use them in films. And then think about this entire user journey and how your prototype fits, where it fits in the journey and what fidelity it needs to be. So the key takeaway here is, what's the bare minimum I can do to convey the idea? And it's all part of how do I get more information out of my end users. So here's an example of fidelity and in a prototype. So this is an example of a low fidelity prototype. Like it really has nothing of interest there, but you can get information out of here. Is this the kind of information you want to see? Can you get the answers you need? Do you understand what might be under those tabs? So those are the kinds of things that you can do with an ultra low fidelity prototype. The strength of this kind of prototype is people aren't stressing over the color and the font and where stuff is, whether it's something maybe scrolls. It's just about, does the information architecture work? And here's a high fidelity prototype. So this is actually UCI's webpage. And so when you see this, you literally can't even think of the information. You're hit with, wow, what are these colors I like? Do I like the font? Where are these guys going on the beach? What does COVID mean to this? And so you can't even get mentally to a part where you're thinking, can I find the information that I need when I land on UCI's website? And actually looking at this, I'm not sure you could. So something to think about, like minimum fidelity, work on the information architecture, then start to try out things. I care about the colors. I want it to be playful and fun. Those things you can do with higher fidelity prototypes once you've got the information architecture figured out. This is an example I found online of a great example of prototype from Ultra Lo-Fi, where you can see it's some kind of a card game, deck game, and on the left-hand side, they've they've got white cards, or maybe that's just paper, and they've drawn on them, and they've got dice that they've taped little stickers on. And so this is how they're doing their initial prototyping and initial gameplay. And you can see how it evolves from something incredibly rough and hand-drawn to something probably playable to finally the stylized design and the end result. You notice they actually went from dice with little markers on it to regular dice. So somewhere, I'm assuming along their evolution, they decided that the special symbols didn't have any value to their game and moved to just numbers. Or maybe they decided that the dice were so much cheaper that it was a better play for the game. All right, last part is testing. Like, is my baby still ugly? So, and this is what loops back to that research part. So you want to validate your design. You want to take your design, you want to your elements that you're working on now, reconnect with that original audience. You do always want to try to go back to the original audience as you can, because that's an iterative approach. You also want to stir in a few new people somewhere along this journey. You don't want to keep going back to the same people every single time. Again, you want to broaden a little bit. Keep the validation really simple. If you come back to somebody with a prototype and you hit them with a wall of new stuff, you'll get mush back. You want to come in with an idea of 2 or 3 questions that you want answered, things that you're trying to validate. Keep them really simple and streamlined. Do the customer interview, show them your prototype, and pull out that information around what you're trying to understand. So again, am I trying to understand, do you think you'd know where on this webpage to go to get this information? No, where would I find, the color of my hair? Like, where do I find that? Oh, we didn't think of putting that on the page. So that's the kind of stuff that you wanna try to get to. In my case, hair falling out, I guess. Now that you've talked about it, I'm going to be super thinking about the whole rest of the presentation. So anyway, what am I validating? What did I learn? So here's an example. This is a classic product design thinking example. Maybe you guys have seen it, maybe not. So solution first, somebody comes to you and says, I'd like to design a better wheelbarrow. So you think, actually, that's reasonable. Like, wheelbarrows kind of suck. Maybe we can make them better in some way. And so you need find. So you talk to people about wheelbarrows. Like, I'm moving all kinds of things, dirt, bricks, and tools. Like, it keeps tipping and dumping out the load. Tire's always flat. It's hard to push in soft ground. I hate pushing it up and down hill. So you can imagine the kinds of stuff that you're going to get. You talk to people about how to design a better wheelbarrow. So now I've thought about this. I've done need finding, and this is the result of hours and hours and multiple interviews. This is what I need to do. I need to build something with high sides and a deep basin. It needs to have 4 wheels so it's stable, and foam-filled tires so they don't ever go flat. You can read through it. Like, that's it. That's the answer. And what you're going to end up with is this. And so it's cool. And it solves, it's a wheelbarrow evolved. But you missed something huge here. What happens if we go back and instead of saying, I need a better wheelbarrow, I say, how can I move stuff from point A to point B? Because that's the underlying problem. People are trying to take things from point A to point B. A wheelbarrow is just an instantiation of a solution to that problem. So by starting and thinking I need a better wheelbarrow, I've done that left-hand side of that first one. I've narrowed like crazy trying to solve their problem. And that's really a horrible start. So let's reevaluate this. Okay, so now I'm talking to the customer, the end users, and I'm not talking about a better wheelbarrow. I'm saying, what problems do you have? Okay, well, it's really hard to move stuff on and off the job site. I'm constantly having to go back and forth. It's often really heavy things. I have to move awkward things. The ground is soft and it's full of debris. So if you look at this, it's that sort of that same list, but this time not steeped in how to make a better wheelbarrow. All right, so now the ideation session goes a completely different direction. Now that I'm not thinking how to make a better wheelbarrow, can I use a robot, teleporter, drone? Remember, no idea is stupid. Pack animals? Actually, pack animals might be the right answer in some parts of the country, right? We have lifted away the focus on wheelbarrows, and now our brains are open and we're thinking about all the different ideas, all the different strategies we might leverage to get stuff from point A and point B to point B. And I don't see it on here, so it might be a slightly, one of the things that should be on here as well is maybe I don't need to move it at all. Always challenge the original assumption. Oh, there it is. Just needed one more click. All right. So solution first was that first approach where we started thinking wheelbarrow, and I did my customer interviews thinking wheelbarrow, and I came out with a wheelbarrow that's super awesome and solves those problems. The other approach, though, comes back with these. Could be a drone. It could be Spot. It could still be that wheelbarrow. It could be something else. So what you're trying to do is understand what is the need and how to solve it without being bound by preconceived notions. So solution first often is evolutionary. Need first is often revolutionary. Keep that in mind. All right. So I'm going pretty good here. All right, empathize. So quick summary. Empathize with the end user and iterate often. Step back, don't presume a solution, really important. Do customer interviews with people not like you. You can do some with people like you, but you want to get to people not like you, and you want to explore the extremes. And here's, like, I'll give you a great example of this. When one of my startups was a company called HipGeo. You can still find remnants of it around. We got great press on Forbes and all sorts of stuff. Complete fail as a product. Why? Looking back on it, what we recognized was we kept talking to people like us. We had young families. We were traveling all sorts of different places. We had disposable income. So we wanted to share the experience of our entire trip with our friends and family. Facebook didn't do it well. A lot of things didn't do it well. So that was where our heads were at, and that's what we were building. Instagram, this is literally about the time Instagram hit. Instagram came along and said, who cares about all the adventures? Let's just do good pictures with filters. And they nailed it. That was what people cared about, getting mediocre pictures off their phones, sharing with friends, and putting filters on them. So all the work that we did around sharing the adventure was relevant only to a very tiny subset of people. What people really wanted to do was just share their pictures with friends. Seems obvious now, not so obvious at the time. So again, people not like you. Park your ego, your baby is ugly. I guarantee when you sit down, you want people to give you honest responses. Do not stress when they say that your thing is just the stupidest thing they've ever seen in the world. Ask them why. Why is it stupid? What is it that offends you? Whatever it is, dig into that and understand. Listen and learn at every cycle. I've said this enough. Listen, listen, listen. You have to be relentless at this. You got to stop talking and listen. Be scrappy. So this is another one of those things. A couple things that people told me around startups is being scrappy is really important. Staying alive is another one of those things. And so this is really, what do I need to do? How do I think out of the box? How can I learn as much as I can without doing much work? Because again, the faster we can iterate and the less money we spend, the faster we can get to a viable idea. Similar vein, prototype at the minimum fidelity to validate. Don't code, don't build early. It's the most fun. It's the hardest thing not to do. It is super fun to build cool stuff and show it to your friends. Try not to. Try to instead make it a paper prototype or stuff on the page. Visual functional precision can get in the way of conversation insights. This is a big one. If you go at somebody early in the process with a high fidelity prototype, you will lose the essence of the conversation. They will be stuck on the cool widgets or the colors or the way the animations work, and they'll miss getting to the information or the whatever it is they're trying to get out of the product. And they won't know that they've missed it, by the way. They'll just drop into oohing and ahhing about the thing they're looking at. Refine over and over to get to the critical experience for your target users. And this iteration cycle that I talked about, it basically, you want to go wide and then it narrows, and then you widen it up a little bit, and you go narrow and you widen it up. So you keep doing that. Every cycle, it gets a little bit narrower until you get to those key sets of values you're trying to bring to the user. And that is it. Was that too fast? Useful?
That was amazing. So I'm sure we have some questions floating around. So I'll give you a chance to ask them. Kevin, I saw you raising your hand here. You want to go ahead and ask a question?
Yes, actually, Jeff, I had a question regarding this is one of the mistakes that I did in my startup early on, which was I showed them the high fidelity prototypes too early and did not actually go through the process of doing the low fidelity ones to get an understanding of whether the concept is solves their need or not. So my question for you is, what are some what sort of information is lost when you start off with the high fidelity first instead of the low fidelity? If you can go into that a little.
Yeah. So basically, it is exactly what I think I said, and probably what you experienced. If you come in with a high fidelity prototype, you have a number of things that are competing for the person's attention, right? Like I said, if it's a website, they'll be looking at the colors and the fonts and the placement. And if it's a mobile app, the animations and how it touches and how it feels. All of this is competing with getting to, does this product deliver value to you, right? And it's unavoidable. You literally cannot separate, for a normal person, you cannot separate colors, fonts, animations, layout on a screen from information architecture. A normal person can't do it. A product person, somebody who's done a lot of product, can separate. And you will hear them, if you get them into a room, they'll go, okay, I'm going to ignore and they'll go down a whole list of all the stuff that they're going to ignore. And now they can talk to the salient bits on the screen. Most people can't do that. And so it's not that you specifically lose the information. It's like it's buried underneath all the rest of the comments you're getting. Does that help?
Yes, that helps. And as a matter of fact, something I've noticed when I conduct the interviews is they'll tell me, "Oh, this looks pretty," but that's not very useful feedback. I'm looking for something else. So it's like you said, dive back a little bit into the.
Yeah, and by the way, that "this is pretty" is a great example. Like straight up, like, "Oh, this is really cool." Like you'll hear those words, right? But they would never use it because it doesn't bring any value. You've hidden the value and the beauty of the product, right? You know, it's like coming up with the most beautiful vase in the world, but forgot to put a hole in it to put like water and a plant. The person might not notice that until they go to use it, and then it's too late, right? Yeah.
You know, I'll throw a comment in. I thought it was really interesting based on what you just said, Jeff. There was a company I worked with years ago, probably now almost 15 years ago, that was making English education software. And at the time, everything was being transitioned from CDs to, that were being distributed to these education institutions around the world, to going online and it being digital. And one of the things I remember as a business consultant telling them was, your stuff looks like it's straight out of 1988. Right? It's a bunch of clip art, 16-bit resolution kind of stuff that just, it's a birthday cake. Can't you use a photo? Your big competitors use a photo of a birthday cake with kids all around. And they said, that's exactly why we don't do it. Because once we give you a photo of anything, your mind will take you in 27 different directions. Wonder what city that's in. That reminds me of when I was in New Orleans. There was that cute little shop that we went to. It had chairs just like those. Your mind goes off in every other direction than birthday cake. Yeah. Right? And if that's what you're trying to learn is the language, birthday cake, the more we give you, the more it distracts you. And he said, we don't know how to change the brain so that it can handle pictures. All our competitors use pictures, but in reality, they lose as a result.
Yep. Yeah, and one of the things here is in between so and you hit on some key things, but like one of the things is like when it's ultra low fidelity, people are forced to focus on the salient bits. When it's middle fidelity, they're picking on it being ugly, and when it's high fidelity, they're lost in the glory of the experience. And so that's why you have to be really thoughtful, because everything will twist a knob in people's brains. And what you're trying to do is actually, are we solving your need? Are we getting there? Yeah.
Very cool. Nick, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. And I don't think that this particular situation happens often. But is it ever possible that that somebody you interview could be wrong? Like, is it possible that you could ever bring your idea to the table and they said, no, that's a terrible idea, but it's just because the idea is so new? how do we kind of discern that? You know what I mean? Like, what if I
Yeah.
get like some people that are saying, oh, this might be cool, and then the majority of them are saying no? Does that mean that it's objectively a bad idea, or that the idea is, I'm just curious if that.
Yeah. So thing one, you're talking about ideas and not needs. So first you have to get to need finding. You've skipped right over that and you're just like, I've got this idea. So literally you fell into that left-hand bucket at the top, which everybody will do. I'm telling you, like, it's just where your brain goes. And it's good to start with an idea and a concept, right? And then if you take that idea and you pitch it to a handful of people, for sure you're going to get people that like it and other people that think it's stupid, right? What you can ask of the people, if you're looking at an idea, is why do you think it's a terrible idea? Explain why. And it could be it just doesn't solve their needs, so they don't care, right? Which is why you have to get to those people and say, okay, I've got this idea. This is what I think it's trying to solve. Get to the end users and find out if they have that need. You might find that you thought everybody had this problem and it's like 12 people, in which case also not worth building. Or it's you and your buddies that all do the same thing, ride bikes a certain way, go to the same bike parks, whatever it is. And so you're in kind of this echo chamber of behavior. And so you guys think it's the best idea ever. And when you get outside of that group, that somebody just barfs on it, like, oh, that's a horrible idea. So it's like, okay, I hear that you think it's a horrible idea. So you just drill down on it. So what makes it a bad idea for you? And that's where you can actually experiment with the need finding piece, even though it's kind of the sideways in. So I have this idea, and they go, that's a terrible idea. Okay, so what's terrible about it? Oh, well, da-da-da-da. Well, what, so do you have a problem like this? So you have to kind of work it into understanding if it has a problem. It could be that they actually do have that problem and your implementation of a solution was bad or didn't resonate or they didn't understand. Yeah, but absolutely, you will talk to people and they'll think it's a terrible idea and it would be the best idea in the world. You just haven't talked to enough people. Right.
Yeah.
But go with the need. Go try to get to the need. That will help you a lot.
Yeah, you're right. You definitely caught me red-handed there. Like I definitely screwed that up. And like when you started explaining, I was like, oh no. But yeah, that's definitely somewhere it's definitely somewhere we'll have to go. It's kind of just start with the need and try to survey that. I guess my only fear, and I think everybody probably has this fear in some way, is that like when you go that way and then you realize, oh, this idea is actually a bad idea. The question is the new idea that is this new idea that you come up with based on these needs going to be something that you guys care about, that matters to you? Because that's important too, because like it's like, okay, well, this cool idea that we thought of, it maybe it doesn't have a need, but now it's like, are we going to be passionate about this other thing, that maybe it's like something that we don't care about, and then we'd be the wrong team to carry it out. So I guess that's kind of what I'm a little bit afraid of.
And of course, and everybody is, and it is 100% a risk, right? And that's why early on I had the precious Gollum holding his ring, because it is true for all of us that build things, that we build things. It's not like we actually typically are thoughtful and we've got a good idea and we bounced it off a couple of friends, and that's what's seeded the idea and got it spinning in our brains, and now we're building it, and we started investing this time in building it, and you're invested, like not a kid, it's like your baby, like you've invested in it. And so to have somebody say, yeah, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life, is really hard medicine to take. And even if you hear it 2 or 3 and 3 times, it's hard medicine to take. And so as a human, you don't want to feel that pain. So you'll try to avoid it. You inherently will try to avoid it. And what I'm saying is don't. Like, you just have to not avoid it. That does not stop you from building something that you love and you think will be cool, right? Yeah. But it's probably not a viable business, right? And that's the difference. And maybe it is, and you just did the wrong things. But honestly, part of this is there is a lot of fun in building and making cool shit. And so I'm not trying to diminish that value. I'm trying to say, if you want a viable business, you need to look at these other things and be willing to listen to what they're saying. And I'm telling you right now, I've been at customer interview sessions where I wanted to reach across the table and strangle them, right? Yeah. Especially early on in my career, because I'm like, how can you be so dumb? Like, of course this is going to solve your problem, but it was, but eventually you learn, you just need to hear. And then okay, I understand. I understand why this isn't interesting to you. I understand why it won't solve your problem. It actually does, but I understand why you don't think it does, maybe, right? And so how do I shape the solution so it fits their needs?
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's super informative, and definitely carry that advice forward with our project.
Yeah, hardest thing ever, man. That right there. It's like the hardest thing.
Let's, Jeff, I'm going to take you off at the suggestion of Cynthia. Thank you, Cynthia, for reminding me to turn off your screen sharing so we can see everyone in gallery view. But we'll, Jay, do you want to go ahead and ask a question? Yep, you're up.
Sorry, me?
Me or okay. Okay, let me start. Well, thanks Jeff for a really great presentation. So I have a question about testing prototype. Let's imagine like we have a first prototype and we go out and like give someone or like they try to test, and this person may suggest that, okay, you guys need to improve in this, like in this aspect, and another one want to improve in another aspect of the prototype. So how are we going to allow and evaluate that, and how are we going to finalize, okay, which part we need to improve to meet all of the customers?
Yeah, so that is again one of the classic challenges. And as you do your need finding or you're validating a prototype, and this is why you need to do it with more than one person. You need a handful of people to do this. Often you have to decide what the core value is you're trying to drive forward in your product or offering. And once you have that incredibly narrow lens, you can often decide which feature you're going to leave alone and which one you're going to double down on, or function, or whatever it is you're doing in your prototype. A little hard to talk totally abstractly here, but usually you can find a winner if you sample enough people and you have a strong vision around what problem you're trying to solve. You'll also get scenarios where they both need to be solved to be viable, and then you just have to figure out how to get them both done. But always think, is there an incremental change I can make in what I'm doing to unblock X, so it's no longer the thing that people are tripping over, so I can get on to the next thing. And so try to frame it like that. It might help.
Cool. Yeah. And another question about the interview customers. I recently heard a postcard from a startup incubated by Y Combinator, and that founder is like, okay, he started his idea because of his situation, like he lost his suitcase in the airport, so he wanted to have something like try to find his suitcase. So like starting from that problem, it's kind of, is that mandatory like to interview as much customer as possible, to convey any idea, or maybe we just start from like original idea from ourselves?
So usually you have an idea. This is a great example. This guy had a need and a frustration. He was losing his luggage, and somewhere in his, somewhere he thought, I know a bunch of people have the same problem because I have friends that have lost their luggage and it drives them nuts, right? So that was the seed of his idea. So he had done some need finding already with himself and probably with friends, right? So what that doesn't tell you though is if the need is that I've lost my luggage and I need to find it or whatever, it doesn't tell you the best way to solve that for somebody or what their actual objective is, right? In other words, do I care most that I know where my luggage is and I don't care if I get it back, just ship it home? Or do I care where my luggage is because I need it with me now because there's really super important stuff in it? Or is it okay if I find out my luggage was disconnected, days later or a week later, or does it have to be real time? All of those things help you understand what the product is you need to build to solve the actual need of those users, right? And so he might have nailed it. Like he might have been incredibly representative of his target audience.
Okay.
But he doesn't know until he launches the product and then realizes that people love it or don't care. And so need finding helps you make that connection without getting all the way through the process of building a product, right? It's true, like when you go to and you do VC pitches, like you're up talking to the VC and they're trying to get encouraged about what you're trying to build. And of course, they're going to attach it to, you know, especially angels, they're going to attach it to, do I have this problem or can I imagine somebody else has this problem, right? But they're not going to be able to validate whether it actually is going to work. They're going to be doing that same kind of level of validation that you do personally. So if you do that need finding, you can come to the table and go, yes, we've sampled these audiences. Here's what we found out. Really, the core need is X. Our product is going to lean in on that, and it's going to be supportive in these other ways. We're going to have a much richer discussion around what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Very good. Kevin, did you want to ask another question?
Yes, actually, I just wanted to get Jeff's on this because when I started doing interviews with customers, and like I said, I've been doing this for years. One thing I've been trying to do, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is I will at some point after I've had several interviews with customers, I started prototyping our technology. And so what I ended up doing was I kept asking the question initially of, so what are some challenges that you have with blank, or what are some challenges that you face right now because of blank? And so I would ask those questions early on and not saying anything about the technology and doing some follow-up questions after that. And then after I've gotten all my, I asked all the questions I needed to, then I went in and showed them the prototype. And so there I can get their feedback within the same call and get that conversation. Do you see any problems with doing something like that?
No, not at all. I mean, it's important that you separate the two, which it sounds like you did. Not at all. I mean, that's typically what you do. Like if you come in with an idea, or like on one of those iteration passes where you've got a prototype, that's part of the testing effort with your prototype. You're talking to them about, you know, and you know what you might blend it together. What are your needs? And you're like, oh, actually, the needs are actually aligned with what I think I built. Now let me validate my prototype against those for those people. What's important though is you don't drive the conversation to your prototype. You do the need finding raw, and then if there's a connection, you talk about the prototype. Yeah, it's very typical to do it that way. Yeah, just make sure you've separated them in the discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, the only modifications the only time I veer them in a certain path is if they're talking about things that are completely irrelevant to the conversation. Like they'll say, like, for instance, I'll be asking questions about, you know, what are some problems with academic support, and then they'll start talking about things that are like more on the logistical side, like nightmare, like dealing with higher ups, for instance, which is not something related to me. But then I say, oh, but what about this? And then I'll ask them that question. So that's something that I will try and keep the conversation so it doesn't go completely off topic.
Yep.
All right. Awesome. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it sounds like that's exactly what you need to do. And it comes up all the time. So part of the customer interview is kind of going with the flow, like you said, keeping them on topic, but listening to what they have to say. You never know what's going to turn up in some of those side conversations. You're like, wait, what? Go back to this. So it was related. I just needed to let you, express enough to get down to how it was related. But yeah, nothing wrong with showing a prototype after you've been through very typical, right? Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Anybody else?
Good. Other questions? These are great.
Nobody else is talking. What's wrong? Come on, you guys.
They're all eating dinner.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
I think on Kevin's point, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes I see with teams is that they go in and when they're interviewing, they're trying to direct the interview related specifically to what they're building, instead of going in and having a general conversation about what the pain is that person is feeling related to the topic that they're trying to solve. They're going in with the concept of their idea and they're trying to direct the interview toward their idea instead of the reverse.
Yep.
And it gives you a very skewed result and it messes everything up if you do that. So you gotta be careful about that.
Yeah, you don't want to be that wheelbarrow, right? Like there's this whole world of other strategies, but if you And that was what I was trying to allude to with that wheelbarrow example. If you go in thinking I'm going to make a better wheelbarrow, my customer interview will be ferreting out information on how to build a better wheelbarrow, right? And that's the wrong way to start. You can do what you said, by the way. I've done it before, but you have to be really rigorous in separating. And you know what? You could go down with that first person and find needs don't match. And you just need to be done. Like, okay, thanks. That was great information. Don't throw that information away, though. Don't be tempted to go, I'm going to ignore you because I already built this. You have to decide if their needs actually match what you're trying to solve. And it's just your solution didn't bring it to the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was an article recently about in the case of physical products, that we have kind of a legacy that we're hauling from back from the 1900s forward on physical products. And a lot of times at this point, if you're redesigning a physical product, you have to really get away from what the legacy is, because our material sciences have changed so much that if you're stuck with the legacy, you're still doing it the way that everybody's been doing it for the past 100 years. And if you think, how would I start this from scratch, knowing the materials that we have now, then you come up with the groundbreaking information. So I think the same thing happens in all sorts of technology as well. And even when it comes to programming, taking a look at new types of programming and not getting stuck in the legacy of particular languages is also important. So, what is the lightest way that you can approach something and the quickest? And back to the idea of not only prototyping, which I think people get hung up on too high a fidelity, but there's a thing that a professor in Stanford calls prototyping, which is a quick cobble together, kind of a Frankenstein, where you can test concepts quickly and get that feedback, and then you can go to prototyping. So just a thought.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Very good.
A lot of other people who haven't talked. I feel like,
Yeah.
are we allowed to pick on people?
Hey,
I think it's fair game.
your show. Let's do it. But who's got a question?
Okay, I'm gonna just pick. I'm gonna pick Billy. Come on, Billy.
Going under the bus.
Not even there. Like, not even there. Just. Yep, gone. Oh, hey, there we go. All right.
There you go.
All right.
What was
You're
that?
good.
Okay, I apologize. My internet is not the best right now. So that's why I'm like here in the kitchen. I'm trying to see where the best internet spot is. But I don't necessarily have a question. We do have a dilemma in our group though after, doing this workshop, and we are on the phase of prototyping. And we have these plans of, using 3D printing models, and we're trying to get this product designed by someone through Fiverr because we don't have an electrical engineer in our group. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of worried with the low fidelity and the high fidelity part of our process, because we did interview some people who might be interested in our product, and one comment they wanted was that, yeah, that sounds like a cool thing and we want it to look nice. So I guess that's why we wanted to start prototyping and using 3D printing, but that's just a short comment on my end. I apologize, my internet's not the best right now.
No, your internet's working great, by the way. So yeah. So like with those people that want it to look cool, like if you can hack together something that feels like a if working, the physical prototype working is relevant, and just say it's going to look cool when it's done. But could you imagine yourself using this? How would you use it? That might let you sort of understand some of the physical elements of what they're trying to do. I'm sure you guys have talked about this before. So this is one thing you can do. Like, again, IDEO, I know people at IDEO, they're hardcore foam core people. Like, they craft out of foam core all day long and go a long way in foam core before they go to a 3D printer. If you're trying to build something that is aesthetic, like a big part of the product is the aesthetic design choices that you're making, then that becomes different, right? But that can go quickly into a space where the feel of the material and the weight of the material and the precise color of the material, all of those things start to have an impact on the perceived value. So you need to so there's where, like, if it's just there, you're just trying to rough it out and get it about right, then maybe your rough 3D print is fine. I'd argue if you can get to it with a cardboard prototype or something, you're probably paper mache, I don't know, something. But just remember, when you start to step into that higher fidelity space, they'll be judging the quality of your print along with the design that you're doing. So it's almost a trap. So just be thoughtful of that. You know, is it going to be cool? Yeah, it's going to be like, you're better off with sketches and things than what, because once they have that 3D print in their hand, they're going to look at it, they're going to see the layer lines, and they're going to not like the color or whatever it is. Just like that UCI versus the wireframe, the same thing happens when you're doing a physical prototype. So keep that in mind, and you just need to kind of guard against that when you're doing the designs.
Thanks, and Billy, thank you for being.
That was a great question, but great example too of where you are in your journey. Good luck. Yeah.
And crew, let's go ahead and end with you, and then I want to make sure we have time to actually go into networking. This is a prototyping, testing, guinea pigging opportunity for us. So I want to make sure we have the chance to do that. So crew, we'll end with a question from you.
Deal. Hello, I have a quick question. I'm really interested in participating, and I have a fellow engineering student who is very interested as well. And we're in the early stage of identifying a problem to solve. I know both of us are very capable engineers, but we haven't been able to target something specific. Do you guys have any suggestions on where to be looking for problems to solve?
Wow. So you don't have a problem to solve. You don't have a need.
I know there's way too many problems to solve in the world, but we don't have a specific something yet.
Okay, so that's interesting. Do you guys? Normally I'd look at a couple approaches. One is you can get out and you can look at what's going on in the news and what's happening and all that kind of stuff, and go, is there something that I can actually do to help make mankind better? Whatever, right? So you can draw a lot of inspiration there. You can draw inspiration from existing products, but usually for me, it comes from problems that friends and family or people that are close to me are having, because that's where kind of my heart is around this stuff. And so I would reach out to all of your friends and family and say, what's frustrating you today? In the past week, what are the top 3 things that have frustrated you, right? And see if you can get somebody to come up with an idea that you're like, okay, that's pretty interesting. And then you can go around and you can ask a few more people, okay, so what frustrates, if they don't come up with it, what about this? Does this ever frustrate you? Oh yeah, that actually is one of the things. Maybe it's my 5th thing, not my top 2. But you could try that approach to see if you can peel back some ideas. You can also look at your skill set in terms of what you guys are capable of doing. You might consider joining another group here that could leverage your skills on an idea that they've already got cooking. And so that's also really valuable, because that collaboration at sort of this stage is probably perfect timing in terms of doing that. Those are my ideas. Anybody else?
Yeah, there's a site called OpenIDEO. They have challenges up, different things that people are trying to solve.
Yeah.
Like Jeff, I frequently will talk to people and say, what's driving you crazy? Those are the pain points. You want somebody to have a really significant pain, something that makes them nuts every day, because it's hard to change people's behaviors. And so a lot of times something that's good enough, they'll stick with. But if it's really driving them nuts, that's where you've got the sweet spot.
Yep.
Wow, that's very helpful information. Thank you, guys.
Drew, there's some great links that have been put in the chat, including I put in 2 TED Talks that I think you'll find really helpful. One's just notice things, which is what Jeff's basically saying, right? Is go ask people what they've noticed effectively. And then the other is a bit about how these ideas really do come about. So this has been wonderful. Like I said, I want to experiment with a networking tool. So I appreciate the opportunity. First of all, can we all thank Jeff for this wonderful time before we wrap up with a couple of slides? Jeff, this was spectacular. Thank you so much.
Cool.
And Jeff, is it okay with you if we share the slides with the attendees?
Yeah, because the attachments actually have some links too, and I think OpenIDEO is one of the ones in there, and the D School at Stanford has lots of good articles. So yeah, absolutely, share away.
Awesome. So let me wrap up here. So your next steps, as it were, are basically to crank through this. And let me throw a few links here for you in the chat window if I can find it again. There's a bunch of links there. First is, if you haven't done an intent to enter, go ahead and do that. Let us know that you're interested. The next workshop's in a week, same time, same place. Well, different URL, but you'll find it when you register. Obviously, share this with your friends and your families and fellow students and everything. Pull things together. There's information up on the website. You've got your product spec due this Sunday. This is a midpoint. It does not count towards your final score. So it's really a chance for you to get feedback from the judges and learn about what is going right and wrong in the process. If you need help, we have plenty of opportunity to give you help. And of course, if you haven't yet, hopefully you have, get started on this. So then the last thing I want to mention to you is this link.
Scientists and researchers at NASA.
Someone's watching it now.
All
All right, here we go. The last one is this wonder.me. And the idea behind this is it's a virtual networking room, right, that I want to experiment with. Two different areas. You don't have to follow these, but if you go to that site, you will end up with a little icon like this. Let it take a screenshot, of your image, put your name in, and then you can literally drag yourself around on the board, right? And so if Cynthia is over, I can drag myself over to Cynthia and then enjoy basically like a Zoom breakout room with Cynthia, and anyone can come join us in that circle, just like if we were in a real networking room. Jeff could come show up and Billy could show up, and they could have a group of 4 of us, and then I could walk away. I could invite somebody in. So I want to experiment with this. So I highly encourage you to take that link and join us. It looks like tablets aren't supported. Boo. That stinks. All right, fail number 1. Oh, boo. All right. Well, hopefully we'll still find some people who aren't on tablets. I didn't know that tablets couldn't do that. That stinks. So if you can get to a PC or a Mac or something, that would be great. And again, I put the link into the window. I'll put it in one more time for you. We're going to go straight after this. So as soon as I hit end meeting, we'll head over there and we'll get a chance to network. I did it last week and it actually worked fairly well. So I'm curious how it goes for us. Again, let's give a big round of applause, virtual or not, or however we, give him big thanks to Jeff for all of his insights. We will post all this information up on the website for you. And again, Jeff, thank you for all your time. Hopefully we'll get a chance to go and network and chat and continue our conversations about how to put the driver, the end user into the driver's seat. So thank you all for being here, and we look forward to seeing you again at our next one.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys. See you at the networking link. I'll give you a second to click on it.